You turn on the news, and what do you hear? Inflation, rising rates, conflict. It really feels like the market's just teetering on a knife's edge, right? But what if I told you that hidden inside all of this volatility is what could be the single biggest investment opportunity for the next decade? Okay, let's dive in and really unpack what's going on here.
There's really no better guide for times like these than this classic advice from Warren Buffett. All the fear we're seeing in the headlines, it's not just a threat. For an investor who's prepared, that fear is the very thing that creates these incredible, maybe once-in-a-decade opportunities.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to dissect what's making everyone so nervous. Then we'll grab Buffett's simple but super powerful framework. And with that in hand, we'll dig into two very different, but I think equally compelling opportunities. One in energy, a company called Cheniere, and one in digital payments, Adyen. And then we'll zoom out and look at the big choice every single investor is facing right now. Okay, let's start with all that anxiety in the air. We keep hearing these scary words: stagflation, interest rate hikes, and of course the price of oil. So, why is everybody so nervous? Well, it turns out it's not just a vague feeling. These fears are actually rooted in a really clear and kind of spooky historical pattern.
Just take a look at this timeline. The consistency is, well, it's pretty startling. 6 of the last 7 major recessions were preceded by a huge spike in oil prices. From the 70s oil crisis all the way up to the 2008 financial meltdown, this pattern is undeniable. And that is exactly why the current energy situation has the market so on edge. You know the saying, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes? Yeah, this feels like one of those times.
But look, fear is not a strategy. So how do we actually navigate all this? We turn to a rational framework from, well, one of the most successful investors in history. We need a way to cut through all that noise. And this playbook, this gives us the clarity to find the real signals.
The entire game of value investing, it really just boils down to this one powerful idea: intrinsic value. It's not the stock price you see flashing on the screen. It's what a business is actually worth based on the cash it can generate over the long haul. And the goal is simple, right? Buy a great business for less than it's truly worth. And these moments of widespread panic, that's exactly when those discounts show up.
So how do we spot a real bargain from something that's just cheap for a reason? Buffett uses this beautifully simple 3-question test. And notice, it's not about trying to predict stock prices day to day. It's all about understanding the business itself. This little test is the key, and it's the exact checklist we're going to use right now.
All right, first up to the plate, a company right in the thick of this energy storm, Cheniere Energy. Let's apply our new framework and see if this crisis has actually created a really compelling long-term opportunity here.
So what's the deal here? The crucial point is this very specific event, a supply shock. There was a major attack that basically took a huge chunk of the world's liquefied natural gas supply offline. And we're not talking about for a few weeks. We are talking about a multi-year supply gap that the world is now desperate to fill. This creates a huge, urgent demand that someone has to meet.
And this is exactly why Cheniere is in the perfect spot to meet that demand. They are the undisputed leader in U.S. LNG exports. They have a near monopoly on the critical port infrastructure needed to ship this stuff. That's not something a competitor can just build overnight. And better yet, their business is incredibly predictable. Just look at that fourth point. 95% of its capacity is already sold on long-term contracts for the rest of the decade. That is a level of visibility that most companies can only dream of.
Okay, let's run it through our checklist. Question 1, growth? Oh yeah. They're planning a 20% capacity expansion that's projected to boost profits by a staggering 50%. Question 2, low risk? Absolutely. Those long-term contracts are like a fortress around their revenue stream. And finally, the valuation? It's trading at a big discount to the market average, around 14 times its cash flow. It's a clear yes on all 3 questions.
Now for our second case study. Let's pivot completely from old world energy to new world tech. Adyen is a total powerhouse in digital payments, but the whole sector has just been hammered by fear lately. So let's find out if this fear is actually justified or if it's created a whole new opportunity.
So the story driving this huge sell-off is the fear that crypto, specifically stablecoins, will come in and completely disrupt the system. The theory goes that stablecoins could let merchants and customers pay each other directly, basically bypassing the traditional payment rails that companies like Adyen run on. And because of that fear, the market has sold off the good, high-quality companies right alongside everyone else.
So what makes Adyen so special in this environment? Well, in a business like payments, cost is everything. It's king. And this is Adyen's superpower. Its net take rate,
that's the tiny little slice it takes from each transaction, is less than half of its main rival, Stripe. Now, this isn't just a small difference. For a huge global brand like McDonald's or Uber, who process billions in sales, switching to Adyen means saving millions and millions of dollars. It's just an unbelievably powerful reason to pick them.
And you can see the results of this low-cost strategy right here. It's working, big time. The company is on track to grow its revenue six-fold in just 7 years. This isn't the story of a business in decline. This is the story of a company that is aggressively taking market share from pretty much everyone else.
But here's the crazy part. This is the disconnect. Despite that incredible performance, the whole crypto fear story has pushed its valuation down to an all-time low. Historically, the market was happy to pay over 60 times earnings for this company. Today, you can buy this growth machine for just 22 times earnings. It's wild.
So let's go back to our checklist. Growth? A resounding yes. More than 20% a year, like clockwork. Low risk? Well, the global shift away from cash to digital is one of the most powerful and unstoppable trends in the world. As for that crypto threat, building a global, compliant, multi-currency payment network is just ridiculously complex. Adyen is already wired into the world's biggest brands. And the valuation? It's the cheapest it has ever been. So, once again, a clear pass. The fear has created the discount.
So we've looked at two very different opportunities. One was born from a physical supply shock, the other from a fear-based story. And this all brings us to the fundamental choice that every single one of us has to make with our money right now.
A lot of people see the market bouncing around and decide to hide in what they think is the safety of cash. But cash isn't really safe. It has its own risk, and that risk is inflation. At just a 2.5% inflation rate, which is pretty mild historically, holding cash is a guaranteed way to lose more than half of your buying power over 30 years. It's not a risk of loss, it's a certainty, a quiet but very real loss.
Now let's compare that guaranteed loss with the historical probability of gain from just owning great businesses. Even if you had the worst possible timing in human history, you invested every penny at the absolute peak right before the 1929 crash, you still would have earned a 7% annual return over the next 30 years. The market's short-term volatility is scary, no doubt about it, but history shows us that its long-term path is powerfully up.
And at the end of the day, that's the choice, isn't it? Do you focus on the chaotic, short-term noise of daily headlines on market swings, or do you focus on the long-term, value-creating stories of great businesses that you can buy today at a discount? The opportunity of the next decade, it's going to belong to those who choose to see the signal through all that noise.